My name's Jeanette Estelle Hamer. My maiden name's Randall. My mum is Stella Randall. My dad is Gerald Randall. I have 4 brothers, Stephen, Mark, Paul and Clifford. I'm the second of the children.
I am Stephen Wilson Hamer. My parents father was Frank, no other names, just Frank Hamer, and my mother was Emily Gidman, became Hamer, again just single Christian name. I have 2 brothers. I am the oldest. Then 2 years later came John Sherwood, and then another 2 years after that came Frank Graham, Frank being my father's name.
My name was not the name that my parents wanted. They wanted to call me Terry, Terri. The grandparents revolted on both sides, and so they called me Jeanette. I'm not aware that there is any reason, family reason or anything why I was called Jeanette, but my middle name Estelle is after my mother, Stella.
Do you know that Nana's name Stella, the meaning behind it was actually just that your grandmother, her mum, saw it in a newspaper. It was a lady that had been murdered and she just liked the name and that's why she's called Stella.
No, I did not know that.
Stephen was the first martyr, and it was fairly common practice in Christian circles to call the first child Stephen. Wilson was my father's mother's maiden name. The John, I don't know how we got John, presumably another good fine Christian saint's name. In those days you had to have saints' names, or should have.
I think Sherwood was father's mother's name, and Wilson was mother's
name,
right.
Maiden name, yeah. And when it came to the third one, Frank Graham, Frank being my father's name, but he to save confusion, they used his middle name, Graham.
I think you were also Stephen because your birthday is very close to St Stephen's Day.
It probably
That's
was.
what your mum said.
No, I was 3 days late for that.
You've been late ever since.
I was born at home on the 20th of April 1955. Home was Carnegie Road in the New Greens Estate where Christchurch is up there. So I was born in the house there.
I was born in the trying to think of the name. Jane Crookall Maternity Home in Douglas, Isle of Man. My home address at the time was the Sycamores in Port Erin. 29th of December 1944.
We did everything together. We were rent-a-crowd. we played together. We used to go off together down the lake on our own. Dad used to come to a car park and blow a whistle, and we'd all get back together and get in. We used to do everything together, really.
The earliest I can think of is probably living in Laxey Vicarage at the age of probably 4-ish. I went to Laxey School. I can remember Brother John, and we had a wooden rustic fence that overlooked a 30-foot drop down onto the Manx Electric Railway track, and I used to try to encourage John to go through this, to the point where Mother got quite worried. I can remember playing in the garden, and there was a bee's nest, and I remember Dad sort of trying to set fire to it with some petrol, seemed to irritate the bees. I remember the grass being cut on the lawn, at Laxey, Jonathan had a diphtheria, which was a vaccination which I put soil into, and he was quite dangerously ill for about a year afterwards.
This is John.
Yeah.
Yes, I failed.
But you all three of you fell into an open sewer
and got
paratyphoid.
We did play together.
Blimey.
We used to leap across. I suppose thinking back on it, it was probably about a 4-foot open ditch, which was an open sewer. But the kids on the Denby estate behind Tipton Vicarage did that, but he did get paratyphoid.
You used to ride your bikes on top of the vicarage roof
No,
as
that
well.
was much later. We were in teenage years then, and then Graham used to set fire to the field next door.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Yes, I suppose we encouraged each other to do silly things, really. We had a flat roof at part of the vicarage. You used to go up the ladder and clear the seagull bones off it, and then, yeah, looking back on it, it could have been dangerous.
My earliest childhood memory is my cot being carried downstairs by Dad and Uncle Don, and being carried downstairs to some kind of family party. That there were other people there, and apparently I was 18 months old and I had measles, and so I wasn't, but I was brought downstairs. I think whether I was not so alert, catching or whatever. But I remember being carried downstairs in the cot. Me sitting in the cot and them carrying the cot downstairs and plonking me down in there. And we were in Partridge Road then, I think. Yeah.
As a childhood memory, one I can remember, Mother had, it turned out to be a burst ulcer, and she being carried down the stairs on a stretcher, looking very grey, and us lads just lined up at the bottom and watched Mother go. And Mother remembered that she wondered whether she was saying goodbye to us.
Yeah, she did say that, didn't she?
Yeah.
She said, I saw these 4 little faces peering over the balustrade at me, and I wondered if I'd ever see them again.
There's a cellar under the house at Tipton, and I remember Mother used to put jelly on the top step to set. That was a bad place to put it. On more than one occasion. So Dad also had a motorbike. I used to ride it round the vicarage lawn.
Didn't Nana used to have a motorbike? I'm sure I saw a photo of Nana on a motorbike.
Didn't she ride your bike or somebody's bike, and it went through her head?
Yeah, well, she didn't understand what a throttle was.
But she went, or a brake,
because she went straight through that hedge. And Hotchkiss next door was the Hotchkiss nurseries man, who was very keen on his garden, but wasn't so keen on Mum coming through the hedge.
I had a seahorse soap once. That's not from my childhood. Well, it was, because I've had it ever since my 5th birthday. I'd had that soap for my 5th birthday until we got married.
No, this is the soap on a rope that the boy you had a crush on gave you for your 5th birthday.
Yeah.
But it was pretty soft soap. It was just...
And I'd kept it forever. And then your dad found it in a drawer because he wanted some soap, he used it.
I had a wooden rabbit. And John had a wooden rabbit. One was pink, one was blue. Mother used to, I don't know, she used to give our things away. And
she gave your money box away, didn't she?
Yes. It was a non-politically correct money box.
Yes.
Which I managed to track one down for him.
Yes.
And then I had this aeroplane made in the war out of aluminium, you see. And Mother used to, when we went, she used to clean our bedrooms she tidied them every day, but once a week she really did it. And she used to position the dustbin beneath my bedroom window, take the lid off, shoot back upstairs, and think she thought there was a mess. She dropped down outside this dustbin. And my plane used to go in there I used to keep recovering it. I don't know.
So this sort of starts to explain why you don't like anything being thrown away, really. It's the trauma of having your plane thrown in the dustbin.
And his money box given away.
And your money
And your
box.
rabbits.
Yeah, I
And your
know.
teddy. Teacher.
I did explore teaching very briefly.
Until the police asked you to stop.
In those days, though, you could go as a contract. What was it? Supply teacher.
Oh yeah.
But you didn't have to be qualified.
No, all you had to do was to say that you were seeking to go for teacher training college, which is what I did. And I went. I remember going one horrendously frosty night. Dad drove through the night down to Oxfordshire, and but I was then at. I'd been before that. I'd been with the electricity board for 3.5 years, so I was quite interested in. That was quite fascinating. But it was an indentured studentship. You don't get them now. And the indenture is, it applied to apprentices. You sign an agreement, your parents sign it and the company sign it, then you rip the paper at a funny angle, as jagged as you like, and then at the end of your time you bring the two pieces back together. And Dad moved from the Isle of Man back to when he went to Norfolk as a vicar, and I followed him over. I had the summer on the island, which is in those days the place was busy and buzzing, and then in Norfolk there was not a lot to do, but I did 9 months teaching, and then I went with the electricity board again.
He was doing metal work, and he taught the lads that had to stay on till 16 and didn't want to stay on. They wanted to be out working on the fields. So he found something that he thought that they might be interested in, was making crowbars, because it was quite basically. The trouble was the little sods
Crowbarred the cash machine in the Conservative Club at Hunstanton.
With the crowbars
With
you'd
the
made with
crowbars. So, by Monday morning there was a message not to.
Because they'd all said, "Oh, we made them at school." My dad and Gladys Aylward. Gladys Aylward was a missionary. I met her once.
Oh yeah.
Before she died, yeah. She was a missionary in China. Inner the Sixth Happiness. It was about her life. Yeah. A tiny lady, absolutely tiny woman. I met her when she was very old. Yeah. Some rabbits, a dog.
That's Tio.
Tio. And a mouse. A white mouse. We had a white mouse. Twins brought him home. They went out and went to the pet shop and bought a white mouse and brought it home in a paper bag. No food, no cage, no nothing. So Dad had to go out and buy a cage and food and everything. Yes. So we had rabbits. We had a couple of rabbits. And then we had Tio, who wasn't perhaps the friendliest of dogs, but then there were 5 of us, and it was a dog that needed a lot of poodles need a lot of brushing and stuff, and he hated being brushed, and he hated the vet. You used to take it up to the end of the path at the night.
Yeah, I did have a lead on it.
And you'd be going, "Come on, time to go in," and you go,
teeth bare. No, I had 2 brothers, that was enough.
Your mum and dad didn't have much time for animals at all,
but I
did
don't
they?
think they had in their family.
No.
Like,
And
I mean,
she
Dad
hated cats.
Dad had what? He was one of 11, was it, or something?
Yeah.
And you know, you couldn't have fitted an animal in the house.
And he became his dad died in an accident, so he became the breadwinner. And one of the reasons he didn't go into the ministry perhaps as early as he would have liked to have done was because he was responsible for bringing up all the others and making sure they got an education.
Right.
And in those days too, on theological colleges, you really had to pay your way through. So he worked in a bleach works, humping sort of 100-weight bales of wet soggy cloth, and they cut hair in the evening, of which we put half of it into the pot for, I think it was British BCMS,
British
Missionary Society, and the other half he put in his college pot. And eventually that got to a point where they must have said, well, he's serious about it. But he never lost that hair cutting thing, because he used to go around Williston and cut hair for some of the single mums and that.
Oh.
When he was doing the parish visiting, he took the scissors and
the children's hair.
Oh.
Oh, it's a long. How many hours were
It was at Cypher, which was the Church Youth Fellowship Association, and it was at the house of people called John and Marion Roberts, and there used to be a Cypher group. We met there. Stephen you'd moved to St Albans, hadn't you? And Steve's dad and Marion's dad were very close friends. They'd grown up together in Bolton and both became vicars.
Well, I knew Marion through, her family.
Yeah, through Rose.
Yeah, up in Bury St Edmunds.
So we met there.
So they said, why don't you come along?
To Cypher.
And I went, really, the Lord has the most amazing
Sense
of
of humour.
I had a tie. She didn't want me. I just had one of these
You had a knitted tie.
pingy ties.
And if you went like that with it, it used to ping up in the
I
air.
think it was pink, actually.
It was
a horrible colour.
it was a violet colour, not a violet. But John and Marion were a bit worried because, of course, there is an age difference between us, isn't there?
A little.
And
But never mind, dear. I saved you being left on the show.
I'll bring the dust off you. Yeah, but they were worried. Marion gave me a little talk because she said she was worried because she said that I shouldn't go into a relationship unless it was going to be serious because of the age difference. He was looking for someone to settle down with, she said.
Is that right?
Yes.
I've never had that discussion with her. Oh, we came to the Isle of Man.
Yes, with Mum and Dad.
With my pet, yes, over here in Onken Garden, but she came as a friend.
Well, no, we've been going out for a while.
Yeah, but was it? Yeah, and I was I repairing the Mini in a
your dad's car. You were
in a
repairing.
boiler suit, and I found this flower. And I know, overcome with passion and everything else, I presented this weed to your
It
mum.
was a carnation, covered in green fly.
Sure, she remembers it's a green fly. She doesn't mention the oil on the stem.
He got down on one knee and proposed in the garden
Oh,
of not the house you remember, but the one in Harbour Road. But you asked my dad first, didn't you? Dad,
Yeah.
they were on holiday as well with us.
yeah.
Then you asked Dad, and then
He never gave me an answer on that thing.
and your dad had said, always look at the mother because that's what the woman.
That was my dad.
Your dad, yeah.
Always said, yeah, if you're ever going to think of getting engaged with the prospect of marriage, obviously, to somebody, look at the mother. That's how they'll turn out.
In St Albans, in the old Christchurch, 20th of April, no, 20th of July.
Get it right.
Yeah, 20th of July at Christchurch, 1974 it was.
Yeah.
We were the last wedding to take place, I think, weren't we?
It was the last wedding in
At Christchurch.
Christchurch, and Jonathan was the
First baptism in the new church centre.
So
And there was quite a few years in between.
Oh, 9 or 10
7 years.
or
7 years it was.
so.
Yeah. Jonathan Mark Hamer was born on the 27th of February 1980. 1980. A was born at St Albans City Hospital. Rebecca Louise Hamer was born on the 6th of November in 1981, and she was born in the Shrubbery Maternity Home in High Wycombe. And Samuel Hamer was born on the 8th of November in 1987. He was supposed to be born in the maternity home, but because he was ended up being an emergency caesarean, he was born in Wycombe General Hospital.
He was in an incubator, Jonathan, and I remember Maggie Young coming to look at him, and because they had to put a gown on.
We've got, yes, we've got a photo.
And I could take some photographs, and I thought, you know, the natural thing would be to want to pick him up, but you couldn't. And then there was Becca. I remember you. We went to remember the bonfire night at the football field, and he'd ended with this very loud air bomb, and you said, Michael, I think you better take me to hospital. And I did.
The contraction started with this really loud firework at the end of the...
Yeah, so we took you straight there. You didn't have any...
No, you had to go back and
had to come home and get clothes and things.
I had difficulty walking back to the car because the contractions were coming thick and fast, and you were born within 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Both of you were born within 3 hours. Jonathan...
They had to hold him back.
Yeah.
Hold you back.
And then that's why I knew after 18 hours with Samuel that something was wrong. Yeah. Well, they'd warned me with my next one to be in the lift before my contraction started because I would probably, you know, because of the... But of course he was stuck because the placenta was in the way. So. And, yes, my memory of you was in a dark brown...
paper bag.
Baby grow that I had got. You had a real shock of dark brown hair. And my nana, can you remember my nana? We got photos of the two of you together. But my nana, of course, babies were meant to be in white or cream or yellow, and I had you in this what would have been described at the time as nigger brown, but it's not allowed to be anymore, baby grow, and kind of a random wool lime green and yellow jumper that I'd knitted you. And of course, she was expecting this little baby, this genteel little baby, and there's this punk rocker in brown and lime green and yellow.
I can remember taking Jonathan to the shrubbery, and you're in the bed, and you're in the bed as well, and we discreetly slipped a toy for Jonathan into the bed to Laurie, so Mummy can say, look what the new baby's got you. Well, all he could say is, put her back. Which I thought wasn't very friendly.
That was another memory, and that's a memory with both of you. Samuel never had his adenoids out and stuff, but was walking down with you to the theatre on both occasions and watching our little child with both of you
on an adult
trolley being wheeled off to theatre, which was, yeah, I remember that.
I remember being in hospital for that because I remember having a brick of ice cream.
Yes, they did that. Oh, and toast they used to bring after the
I remember that.
Yeah. All had interesting school, primary school experiences, I think.
I just thought of a memory of you, but you won't like it. So
it was.
You could say it if you like.
Mrs. Russell's play group. Do you remember going to the nativity and this little row of angels coming out, aged 3, and the one at the end's picking her nose?
No, I can't remember that one. No, I can remember going to the play group in the football and the cricket club, wasn't it?
Oh, that was Sam.
It was Sam, and yeah, they were, and I had the video camera going. It's early days of video cameras, and Mary at the end took a nappy off and threw it across the stage. So,
Sam was a shepherd.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with it.
No, and then later on at Holy Trinity, Sam was the dog.
Oh yes, in Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Nana the dog.
Nana got put in the kennel at the end.
We
Yeah.
hired a costume for him, didn't we?
Yeah.
Dalmatian costume.
Yeah.
Lots of memories of you growing up. Lots and lots of you all growing up. Because we've tried to always do things with you.
Well, the back garden was safe to play in. That was
I remember Nana counting something like 23 children in the back garden once.
and do you remember we had the tractor and trailer, and Jonathan used to have you on the
like
tractor? Yeah, and if he got off, the back wheels of the tractor ended like a pivot, and they used to whack up.
You'd fall off wearing custard. Do you remember custard that she used to wear? That yellow zippy
bright
thing.
yellow zippy suit, yeah. And then the snow came down, and you were desperate inside one day. The French windows.
Oh, I got a photo of that. That's you're inside with Nana, and Jonathan is outside in a little zippy outfit in the snow, and you're banging on the window because you wanted to go.
And then we got the big paddling pool. A few of them.
Remember the tidal wave? Did you hear that?
Sam goes running up, slips at the last minute.
Goes through. No,
in.
he jumped in and slipped on
the bottom.
On the bottom, and his feet went out.
Went straight out through the sidewall.
Just got the
600 gallons of water came down the garden.
Just got the door shut before it hit because it came right up. Anyway,
we had the greenest garden in Stepperton Close. You went to the Girls' Brigade.
I did.
And then you joined Marlow Angels, the
Football
football club.
he was a cub, wasn't he? He had that stick through his ear.
Yes.
He looked like a chaplain. He's my friend. He's my friend.
And I think we know how each other's thinking at times, which is a bit of a worry.
Which works well at church. Robin made a comment about us being a double act at church on Sunday, and I said, well, actually it works in our favour because we can just give a glance or a nod or something and know, what's.
But it isn't done. It isn't quite as random as it appears. Before a service, we will agree which we're doing and mark it.
Sure.
But if during the service something gets forgotten, like a collecting plate or something, you can just nod to them. They know what it is.
So
It's a teacher's stare.
Yes, I know when I am not flavour of the month. Some people have commented that because we sometimes, perhaps, I won't say quite take the mickey out of each other, but are not mega complimentary at times, that they see it as they don't quite understand it, do they?
No.
And they think I've got a funny sense of humour anyway.
Yeah.
Maya.
His patience.
Really?
Well, if we were both the same, it would be a difficult relationship. I think it'd be a bit like magnets that very like repel.
Sure.
And being different goes. Although you see, we got a lot of things in common. But we're individuals.
I do care for you, but maybe I don't always express it as some people. Yes, I suppose she's tolerant of my small foibles.
Some qualities of our marriage, patience and tolerance.
Well, actually, they're quite important.
Also, you're both very generous with both your time and your things. And then you're both very sweet when you think no one's looking with each other, like little presents and little thoughtful things.
No, that's usually one way.
Right.
I get the presents and he doesn't get.
Oh, that's nice.
What did I get you for your birthday?
You had a card. That's pretty safe bet.
Blakeney.
I couldn't narrow it down.
That's okay.
It's changed over the years. So as a when I was like the Lake District into my sort of 20s and 30s, but I still like the Lake District, but not quite the way I saw it then.
We like going around the abbeys, the old abbeys.
Dealing with your parents' death is difficult. Can be difficult. I remember with Dad, who died many years before my mum. There was so many. He was over here in hospital, and so the only time we saw him was when we came over on holiday, and he died about 3 weeks after, after we'd gone back, and I thought, but prior to that, we'd all been. It was the chance of having John, Graham, and I on the island at one time was quite rare, but we were, and Dad had pneumonia in Nobles. He was quite ill, and Mother felt it was time to go. That he wanted to go. He'd actually expressed that wish, but they insisted on giving him this and that, and he came to.
He survived.
And I remember the family doctor saying, "Not clever." He said, the fact that medical science can do this doesn't mean you should. And I agreed with him. And I remember it worried me that I'd not said goodbye to him, really. And in fact, one of the problems with having, you tend to assume a sort of, when the father is ill, the patriarch, it tends to be the son, probably the eldest son, assumes their role in a funny sort of way, and with John, with you and as family, you try to appear strong about it all, and say goodbye to Grandpa and everything. We're off in the morning, all that. Actually, looking back on it, what I really wanted to do was to hold his hand, and actually, because you always assumed there's a next time, and this time there wasn't. I remember going and seeing David Moore about that, and David said, everybody I have ever known has always said, I wished I'd have said something or done something. So he says, you're not, that doesn't make you a bad person, but with Mother, I was actually a bit cross with God over that, because we were in here, there was a practice on for the Grand Prix.
Road closed.
We had a phone from the nurse at hospital saying Mum's not good, but she said, if you come over, you could still be here in the morning. That was really the last thing she said, which, Graham was in Hillary Close at Onken, and I phoned Graham and I said, I've had a message from the hospital, Mum's not good. And she'd already been about 2 weeks on what I think now is a discredited system, Liverpool Pathway. Anyway, Graham got down as he could get out. He could go down through the underpass and through to hospital, and was with her. We got over, and because it was past 8 o'clock, the main door shut. You got to go into A&E. So by the time we got to the ward,
she died.
She died 5 minutes before, and I was quite cross about it, because I thought, having been deprived of being with my dad, at least I had a chance of being with my mother, and it wasn't to be. I suppose if you accept that you're made up of body, mind and spirit, and the spirit bit leaves the person at death, then what you are then with is a tent and a shell, and that I just had to. I did sort of quietly pray over her, but that probably helped me more than.
You read the 23rd Psalm off.
Yes, I had a book, Bible in my pocket. Mm.
I think one thing that was difficult to deal with was miscarrying. And it was many years later, I suppose, when I actually came to terms with it. Because I think I blamed God, and there was a part of me that felt that they had gone forever. And it was a Christian friend of mine that I'd gone to talk about something else. And she had said, no, there's something else as well. You know, she said, I feel that there is something that you need to deal with. And it was dealing with that and realising that you know they were not to be, but they were safe with God, and they had not just gone. So I think that's probably the most difficult thing. But it was many years later, and just then, which putting my vicar's hat on now, shows that actually burying things does not help, because they fester away, and there needs to be a safe environment where you can actually verbalise and deal with it, rather than allow it to fester in the background. Yeah.
I can remember you being desperately sad over it and saying, my baby's gone down the loo, and that's all, you know. And but then you had a lady doctor who said, oh, well, that's to prepare the body. It happens frequently, and that prepares the body for the next.
More often than people understand. Your body kind of has a trial run.
Yeah, but
and the epilepsy drugs actually caused it.
Phenytoin.
Yes, the epilepsy drugs were not ones that were advised if you were pregnant or even trying for a family, but nobody had ever said that. Don't go to bed on an argument.
Yes, Mother had another way of putting it.
Don't let the sun go down on your wrath.
Yeah.
That was the...
Yeah, she said, because you never know if you were going to still be there. You know, it might be too late the next day to say, sorry.
Getting together. Occasionally.
Occasionally, yes.
Spending time together. I think my family have always done that, and it's something that I've tried to carry on.
Being nice to our children.
For me, it's to do with family, and it's to do with God, because I think a human family is symbolic of a relationship of God with his creation and his children. And to me, is to have the unity of family within the bigger picture of the unity with God.
I see us as part of our... we've come from the past, but we're also part of the future. The Celtic knot has no beginning and no end. Purpose of life. I think you've got to treat others how you would like to be treated yourself. How do I go through life? What life have I got left? You see, that question creeps in as you get older. You've got the world in front of you, to a point.
I don't feel like
You've survived very well. You've had 30 odd years. You've had good times, you've had bad times.
That is life, though, isn't it?
You've travelled around. You've seen more of the world than sort of probably 0.1% of people. You know, you're in the 1.1. You're very, you know.
Been very blessed.
And the world is a huge mix of beliefs and peoples and poverty and.
We done?
Last thing is just who's your favourite child?
Oh, yeah, the recording. The battery's gone fast.